This tutorial will show you how to paint Autumn Bridge. We're going to jump right in and get started. I'm using a 12" by 16" canvas. I'm using a 3/4 inch wash brush, and I have the color Phthalo Blue and Titanium White on my palette. I'm going to fill this entire canvas with the white and the blue. So notice how I'm dipping the brush in a lot of white and just a tiny bit of blue. So dip it in the white and dip just the corner in a little bit of blue. You're going to paint up and down strokes using the full width of the brush, and what's happening is that the white and blue are blending together to make a very light blue. And I like the look of this blue in the sky where the colors are not, they're blending on the canvas and they're not turning into 100% solid color. That's kind of the style I'm going for in the sky. And we're painting the entire canvas because we haven't really defined our horizon and our river yet. We're just kind of doing this to lay the groundwork of this painting. So actually this blue is going to help with the river color as well. So that's why we're painting the entire canvas. Okay, so my video is speeding up here. I encourage you to press pause and not paint as fast as the video. So take your time. Also, if you need to add a little bit of water to your brush to get it to flow a little bit better, you can do that. So you would just dip your brush in a little bit of water and then load the paint and kind of brush it out on the palette a little bit. And so make sure that water is not dripping, just a tiny bit of water, because if the water starts dripping, then your background will start kind of bleeding through and dripping too. Okay, so when you are done with that step, you need to let it completely dry. Okay, so my painting right here is completely dry, and now I'm going to transfer the main features of this painting onto the canvas. So I have the bridge and the lamp post on my traceable, and this traceable's on two separate papers, and I taped them together on the back. So this is two 8.5 by 11" papers, computer size papers, printed out, and that's the way the PDF is. When you go download the PDF, you'll see that it's on two different sheets, so you'll just print them out and then tape them together. And also note that one of the traceables has the option where it has the river and the horizon lines. So if you feel more comfortable tracing it with the river and the horizon line, you can do that as well. So what I'm doing is I'm using a basic drawing pencil, and I am tracing the lines with the sheet of graphite paper below. The shiny side of the graphite paper is facing the canvas, so the pressure of my pencil is allowing the drawing to transfer onto the canvas, and I'll be able to see it. You want to press pretty firm for it to show up, and it also helps that the canvas is flat on the table, and that helps to give enough pressure to be able to see the drawing. Okay, so when you're done, you just pull it off, and we are going to start painting in some of these main features. But first, I'm going to grab my measuring tape because I want to mark where my horizon line is going to be. I am going to place this at 4.5 inches from the bottom, and I just made a little mark on the canvas where that is. Okay, and since my horizon line is not perfectly straight, I don't need to worry about that. It's a nice lumpy horizon line because the land is kind of hilly. And by the way, I'm using a number 12 bright brush with the color light olive green. And over here under the bridge, I'm going to define my river. So this is going to be the outer part of the river, and my river is not going to go to a point. It's going to be flat on the horizon line, but it's going to get wider as it goes to the bottom under the bridge. Okay, so I just defined my river, and the rest of this bottom area is going to be filled in with the light olive green. I'm going to do the best I can to go around the bridge. You can just paint this entire bottom with the light olive green and then go back over and paint over the bridge. I just chose not to do it that way because I already traced my bridge on the canvas and I already know where my bridge is. I didn't want to lose where I defined those lines already. So I'm just painting around that area. And I kind of painted around the base of that lamp as well because I didn't want to lose that drawing right there. And so I'm doing these short little choppy strokes, and they are a couple layers because this color is a little bit translucent. So just little short choppy strokes kind of going in all different directions to make it look like it's not a very even ground, kind of choppy, grassy, sort of a hilly area. Okay, so when you have all that filled in on the bottom, we're going to go in and define our bridge. We're going to start painting the bridge in. And you see me flashing these colors across the screen here. I loaded my palette with the colors Titanium White, Neutral Gray, value 5, and Mars Black. So black, white, and gray. And the bridge is gray, but there's some variations in that gray. So we're going to use the black to make some darker areas, and we're going to use the white to make some lighter areas, and also the part that's directly under the bridge is pure black. We're going to use a 3/4 inch flat brush to start out with, and I'm going to paint the biggest part of the bridge. The big main arc of the bridge is a solid neutral gray. So that neutral gray color, I'm just doing it with that color, and I'm painting full width strokes. And this 3/4 inch flat brush is very helpful for this step because you can just use the entire width of the brush to paint it. Reminded me of painting a rainbow. And we're going to paint the entire thing except for that border. So when you drew the bridge, there's a smaller arc on the bottom. We're going to leave that blank. And then of course there's the underpass, the under part of the bridge that's the darkest. We're going to leave that blank for now. This video is going to speed up a tad bit here, but take your time, press pause if you need to, and fill in the area as described with the neutral gray, value 5. You want to make sure that your edges, especially the top, is nice and crisp and not dry and feathery or anything like that, because that has to be very defined. We're not really going to go back over it again, so make sure that's nice and crisp. Okay, we're going to make a darker gray by not rinsing the brush off, but grabbing a little bit of black and just kind of blending the little bit of black to a lot of gray on the palette so that we make a darker gray than the one that is already there. Okay, and then that's the border that we're going to fill in. So that bottom part of the arc, and you can actually use the full width of your brush here. We can assume that that's a 3/4 inch wide arc, and so you're just using the full width and dragging it along to create an even arc right there. Okay, so don't fret about the gray being the right shade. Just mix a little bit of black with that gray and get it to be darker, and you should be fine. Okay, so for the stones, no, I'm sorry, not the stones, but the under part of the bridge is going to be a solid Mars Black. So I switched to a number 12 bright brush just because it's a smaller area, and I could really get in there and define those corners in there. So you want to fill that in a nice solid black. Don't forget about that angle that's underneath the bridge. There's a diagonal line to give it some perspective. So don't forget about that. And then you see me outlining the rest of the arc underneath. and then outlining the horizontal line that's on the bottom of the right part of the arc. The next part is a lot of fun. It's these stones, the cobblestone texture on the bridge, and for that I used a round brush. This is a number 4 round brush, and I'm going to double load my brush in white and gray. So I'm going to end up with the variations of this color gray here, and I'm going to paint my stone. It's an oval shape, but it's an irregular oval shape that kind of fits together with the one next to it, kind of like a puzzle. So I am making them fairly close together. They're not all the same size. They're relatively the same size, so they're not tiny and huge, but they're not all the same sort of formation, but they all kind of interlock with each other, almost like brickwork. And so what's happening with the double loading is I'm getting different variations of that white and the gray, so the color variations kind of makes the texture look a little bit more believable, I guess. And so this takes quite a bit of time, and my super speed video here is showing you the speeded up version. So press pause at this point so that you can take your time and fill in those little cobblestone ovals. So that takes a lot of time to do. So press pause for that. I loaded some of my stones with the Mars Black to kind of see what happened, and I'm going back over it because I thought it was a little too dark. So if you wanted to add a little bit of Mars Black in some of your stones to get a unique color, you can do that as well. We're going to move on to the border. So on the border we're going to do the same colors, so we're double loading in the white and the gray, and I'm using my round brush to paint little rectangular shapes that are going to go along this arc here. And I'm doing quite a few strokes here to paint over it to make it nice and solid. And you can also use a flat brush for this. It would actually be a lot easier to use the flat brush because you would just get it done in one stroke. I didn't grab a flat brush, but you can get one that's kind of an 1/8 inch wide if you have a 1/8 inch flat brush or a number 4 bright brush. You could even try this with the number 12 bright brush. It would be a little bit wider, but it would still work. It would still look okay. And don't worry about them being kind of perfect here because we're going to go back and define the border a little bit, the edges a little bit better here. So I'm just doing these 1-2 stroke sort of rectangular things going all along the arc, getting my grays to kind of vary by loading it in the white and the gray so they're kind of different from each other. And they're going all along the arc here until I get to the other side. Of course, this is speeding up just a tad bit, so take your time and press pause when you need to. And I'm just kind of going over some of them to make sure it's nice and solid. And then we're going to do something kind of cool here to really define this. I'm going to go back with my 12 bright brush and just the neutral gray, not double load, just plain neutral gray. I'm going to outline the bottom and the top of this border. Okay, so the bottom part right here, I'm using the very tip of my brush to paint the bottom line. See how that kind of really defines that area right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the top part of that border. Okay, so our bridge is really coming along here. Okay, we're going to go in and do some shadowing under the bridge. So I'm switching gears here. We're going back to this green, and I'm mixing a tiny bit of black in that green to create a dark green. You really only need a very, very tiny bit of black to get that green to darken. And so I'm using my 12 bright brush and just doing little horizontal strokes right there under that bridge. And it's going to make us believe that there's a little bit of a shadow under that bridge right there, because that green is darker than the green around it. And in fact, I took this a step further and created some darker areas on the bottom of the canvas under the bridge on both sides. So thinking about depth perspective, the green is darkest closer to the bottom of the canvas and it gets lighter towards the horizon line. So that was kind of the point. And also there would be some shadowy areas down here anyway. And then I went back in there and made this part a little bit even darker by adding just a tiny bit more black, so it's believable that there's more shadowing under that bridge. Okay, we are switching gears here again and using phthalo blue to do some reflection in the water. So this is just the pure phthalo blue, no white, rinsed off brush, of course, number 12 bright brush, and I'm doing little horizontal lines in the water. It's kind of forming the diagonally down to the bottom of the canvas because the bridge is arced, but not necessarily showing the arc in the water, but it's going diagonally. So we have that darker part of the water right now, which is the pure phthalo blue, and we created some water texture by doing the little horizontal lines. Okay, and then we're going to take this a step further. I'm going to add some titanium white to my palette. I'm not going to rinse my phthalo blue brush off. I'm going to add the white to my brush. It's going to create a lighter blue, and I'm just going to kind of create some little short strokes along the entire river. So on the bottom and the top closest to the vanishing point horizon line area, so way far away, little horizontal lines with the light blue, just very subtle. I don't want to lose the background that I already created with the river. I don't want to overdo it, but I still want to give it some indication that there's some water texture. Okay. And then I want this area just to be, I added some more phthalo blue just on this area down here diagonally, so that part is extra dark where that shadow would be reflecting in the water. Okay, I know this is going a tad bit fast here, so like I said, press pause. But I am on to the lamppost now. So for the lamppost, I used a number 4 round brush with pure Mars black. And so that's already drawn in. So this is super easy. It's just you need a steady hand for that vertical line to get it nice and straight. And then you want to really kind of fill in these areas very carefully so that we don't lose the shape of our lamppost. You can even use a ruler or a straight edge to get that vertical line to be nice and straight. Okay, and you can also switch to an even smaller round brush if you have a really tiny round brush, and that'll help you with some of these smaller areas in the lamppost. So don't worry about the light bulb in the middle yet. We want to make sure this black is all the way dry before we do anything with the light bulb. Okay, and then I'm going to go and add a little bit of shadow under this lamppost. So we did the green mixed with a tiny bit of black to add some shadow, and I added a little bit too much black, so I went back over it and added more of the light olive green back over it. Next, we're going to do the trees. We're going to load raw umber onto our palette, and we're going to use our number 12 bright brush. And I am going to start with the tree over here on the right. Always start on the bottom with your tree and work your way up. The bottom part is thicker, so we have a nice thick root base bottom that kind of flutes out like a trumpet on the bottom. And then it gets pretty vertical as we work our way up. And our tree trunk gets thinner as it goes up to the main trunk of the tree. and then we have to branch it off. And I usually branch it off by making a letter Y. And then I will add some more branches along the base of the tree trunk. Okay, and to get your thinner line, you twist the brush on its side. So for the thicker line, you would use the full width or more pressure. You get a thicker line when you do more pressure. And to get the thinner line, you twist the brush on its side to use the tip, and you let go of that pressure. When you let go of that pressure, you get a much thinner line. So painting the tree trunks, it's a lot of practice of pressure. So you're doing thicker at first, and then you're just letting go of the brush very lightly to get your branch to go to a point. And then you just kind of sort of zen out with these branches. You're not really thinking too hard about, okay, why is this branch going this way? Why is it going that way? You're just kind of letting the brush sort of lead the way, but still using the skill of the pressure of thick and thin. Okay, and so that's my tree over here on the right, and my raw umber here is being a little translucent and watery. So I am adding a few coats in here to make it nice and solid, because we don't want a see-through tree. We want it to be nice and solid and sturdy and strong, and we don't need to see the bridge below it. Okay, I got a little bit of splatters on my canvas, but I quickly wipe those up. So the next tree I am doing is behind the bridge here. So it's the same size and same technique of using the thick and then twisting your brush on the side to get it to be thinner, branching off. So we made the letter Y, but then we made the lines branch off into other branches that go to a point. And I didn't go too crazy with this tree, didn't do too many branches. Maybe I'll just do a few little tiny ones here and there. Okay, and then adding just a little bit more brown in there. I'm gonna rinse my brush off, and we are going to do, I'm gonna actually, so when you did this tree that goes behind the bridge, if you ended up painting over it, you can always go back over with your gray and define that crisp line again, so it makes it look like, yes, this bridge is in front of that tree. Okay, so that's what I did right there. Okay, the next thing I want to do is add the white shiny highlight to my lantern lamppost. I'm using my number 4 round brush, titanium white, and with a steady hand I'm going to do a little glare on the left parts of this light. Okay, assuming your black is dry. If your black isn't dry, then don't do this step yet. There's the curved part of the lamp that goes on the top part but on the bottom, and then just adding the glares mostly on the left parts, and then I'm going to do a little bit over here on the vertical part. Nice steady hand. You could probably use your 10-0 liner for this step as well. And then so the light bulb in the middle of that, I'm going to see if I can do that. So I'm going to do like a little circle, and I ended up grabbing some of that black in there because it wasn't dry. You can see what happened. It actually worked in my favor because it looks like that light bulb is nice, like a 3D realistic light bulb all of a sudden. So that was a happy accident. And then we're gonna do the leaves on the trees next, and we're gonna use the 4 round brush and the color Cad Red Deep. This is a nice beautiful deep red color, and I'm gonna do dots, and this step takes quite a bit of time to do. So take your time, zen out, super easy. Your dots don't all have to be touching the branches. I like to make mine kind of floating off the branches, so it still looks like it's part of the tree, but we don't see the branches that they're attached to. So just doing the dots kind of in the air, but it's still part of the tree. And you can make your tree as full or not full as possible and go around the lamp because this tree is in the background. And just enjoy this little step of painting dots. Also, to get some color variation, you can dip your brush in some white, so some titanium white. It'll make your red look a little pinkish, but it also gives some more interesting color to look at than if it was just the solid Cad Red Deep. So you can do that as well. If you have other reds that you want to add to your palette, like Cad Red Medium or Alizarin Crimson Hue, you can do that as well. I just didn't add more colors to the palette of this painting. I just used the one red. Okay. And the tree on the right is actually going to be a yellow, and I'll do the same exact thing that I'm doing here, but instead I'll be doing it with Cad Yellow Deep Hue for that tree. When you feel like your tree is full enough, you want to go ahead and rinse that brush off and go on to your next color. This is Cad Yellow Deep. I'm going to do the exact same thing, the dots, to this tree. If you wanted to, you can have both the trees be the same color, and so you can do that. There's other options you could do. You can do orange instead of yellow. I just chose this deep yellow color, and again, this takes quite a bit of time. If you want some color variation, you can dip your yellow in the white to create kind of a brighter, more opaque looking yellow. And if you wanted to, you can even add just a tiny bit of the red to give some little bit of a orange color in your tree as well. And I didn't make this one as full as the red one. I wanted it to be kind of see-through. I didn't want to lose too much of that blue sky that was already showing through the trees there. So this one is not the same as the other tree. Okay. And then I felt this light bulb here. I'm actually going to use my finger here to spread some little bit of yellow around that bulb. I ended up smearing it a bit there. And so if it was completely dry, that would have worked. If you dip your finger in the yellow and kind of smeared it around in a little bit of a circle, you create the yellow glare to make it look like that light, for some reason, is shining during the daytime. I just like the look of a lamppost that is has the yellow kind of glow in it. So that's what I did. And then went back over it with the white to define that light bulb again. Okay, and then I'm just going back and doing a little bit of a glare with the yellow on the left and the right, so making sure it's staying inside the shape of the lamppost and not outside. And then I did black to outline the actual shape of the glass part. Okay, so moving right along, this painting is almost finished, but there's a few sort of details in here. And one of the details is me adding another coat to this brown that is too translucent for my liking. So that's what I'm doing right there. And you can even go in there and have some of your branches show up over your dots. It gives it some more depth to make it look like those branches are kind of in front, even though a lot of those dots are covering up a lot of the branches. Okay. And then another sort of detail we would have is the fact that it's fall and we would have these leaves falling down. There would be leaves on the ground and maybe a few little dots in the water as well. And so I kind of did some yellow over on the right and some red, but then they ended up kind of mixing together because assuming the leaves would just kind of all blow into the same area. And have some leaves that are under the bridge, some leaves that are falling down. You can see little specks. I'm just going in there, adding some more of the raw umber in there. Okay. This painting, I felt like it needed a path. So on my palette, I mixed white with the brown with a little bit of yellow, and it creates sort of this light brown color. And I'm just using my brush, my 12 flat brush, to paint a little bit of a horizontal line that leads to the bridge. So assuming it's at a park, there would be a path right there by the bridge. And so we see this path. I'm going to kind of curve it down to the bottom of the canvas. Okay. And then of course we would see some leaves falling on that path as well. So I did more little dots along the path. And these are just very minor details that you can even skip if you needed to. This painting has come to its conclusion. I hope you enjoyed painting this beautiful autumn bridge with me. Thanks for watching.